Hello, good afternoon or late morning or whatever time it is, wherever you're tuning in from. This is our clean water webinar, and we'll be getting started in just a moment. Feel free to use the chat to say hello. You can let us know where you're tuning in from, maybe how much snow you have or don't have, and anything you're excited about learning today. Wow, we've got a lot of people already joining us. That's awesome. Feel free again to use the chat to say hello, introduce yourself. But I think looking at the time, we might as well go ahead and get started. So before I turn things over to our speaker today, hello, my name is Heather. I'm the Midwest Save Our Streams coordinator with the Izaak Walton League. And I'm joined today by Jess Gordon, who is our Grassroots Advocacy Manager. Maggie Dombrowski is also on with us. She's going to be helping in the background if you have any questions or issues. But we're really happy to have all of you joining us today for this really important topic about advocacy, speaking up for our really important water resources. I think all of us are probably pretty familiar with how Zoom works at this point, but make sure that if you have any questions, to drop those in the Q&A. That's down at the bottom of your screen. It should look like a little speech bubble kind of with a question mark in it. That just makes it easier for us to track those questions and get them all answered. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions throughout, just make sure to drop them there so that we can get to those. This presentation is being recorded, and you will be able to find a recording of today's talk on our YouTube page after the fact. We also share those on our website, and I can drop the link to our webinars page here in just a moment. But with that, make sure to keep saying hello. I see a lot of folks tuning in from the Midwest, some folks from our Mid-Atlantic region. So it's great to see you all. But without any further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Jess Gordon to kick off our webinar today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jess. I am here to give this talk about advocacy. This is a kind of beginner's course on good advocacy practices and how we can speak up for clean water or any other issue that is relevant to you. So I am the Grassroots Advocacy Manager here at the Izaak Walton League of America. When I get on webinars or I'm having meetings with individuals I'm not familiar with that might have kind of a unique job, I always kind of want to know how they got there. So I have a degree in political communication from the University of Northern Iowa. I am a former Senate staffer. I am a former political director, senior strategist, community organizer, and field director. So I've got quite a variety of organizing experience. And also some of the very helpful congressional staff experience that we will get into a little bit later on. So one of the reasons that we wanted to do this webinar was because it's so important to be standing up for conservation and water, our natural resources right now. I just thought it was really important to kind of go back to our roots and the individual this organization is named for, to talk about rivers and the inhabitants of the watery elements are made for wise men to contemplate and for fools to pass by without consideration. We are not fools. We are not going to pass by without consideration. We are going to engage and make sure that our thoughts and feelings about water and resources are heard. So, what is advocacy anyway? This is a word that gets tossed around quite a bit. But at its root, advocacy is an activity by an individual or a group of people that aims to raise awareness and influence decisions. That's it. So activism, advocacy, lobbying, all of those things can be considered in the broad umbrella term of advocacy. This organization, the Izaak Walton League of America, has been advocating for more than 100 years. It was actually an advocacy action that formed the organization in the very beginning in establishing the Upper Mississippi Wildlife and Fish Refuge. So conservation, quick synopsis. According to NRCS, conservation is the protection, preservation, management, or restoration of natural environments and the ecological communities that inhabit them. As far as the Ikes, our conservation action goals are to provide the tools and education needed for Ikes and our volunteers across the country to advocate for clean water, healthy soil, and climate solutions, and for that advocacy to result in the conservation of environments that support community science and outdoor recreation. So let's start with how we advocate on the state and federal level. If you are met our staff, these are three of our advocates. This is Jared, he's our conservation director. This is Abby, she heads up our Saltwatch program, and Sam, who is the Clean Water director. Our staff has spent years building relationships with federal legislators and their staff. These relationships help us have conversations about potential legislation amendments and policy proposals related to conservation-like concerns. As you know, our congressional landscape is changing all of the time. It's not even just at election time. We have retirements, we have deaths, we have appointments of our legislators. And so we are constantly working on these relationships, either establishing new relationships or building on the foundations of relationships we've established in the past. Advocacy comes in all forms, or in many forms. You don't have to be a professional, and it's super easy to engage in small to large advocacy actions. So some of the words that we're going to talk about today, grassroots advocacy. A grassroots movement is one that uses the people in a given district, region, or community acting together or as individuals to facilitate positive change. Then we also have grass tops advocacy, which is something that we can talk about in another webinar. I'm not really going to touch on this much, but I just wanted this to be a term that you're familiar with. Grass tops advocacy are individuals with political or community connections that can mobilize action through influence. So these are union presidents, former elected officials, celebrities, and individuals well known in their community. For example, if you live in a rural area or you grew up in one, you know that there's often one individual that owns 3 car dealerships in the tri-state county or whatever. That person would be a grass top advocate because they have more name recognition and influence in the community than a person who doesn't have that kind of public facing position. So just to cover this really quickly, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with the Izaak Walton League of America, but this is kind of the structure of our organization. We have our e-board that sits at the top. They make financial and organizational priority setting decisions. Then our national staff, of which I am one, Heather is one. We do more of the federal advocacy, and we do the administration of programs. Then on the state level, we have the division. That's state and local advocacy. They do state issues, state administration for their goals and priorities, and then all the way down to our chapters and volunteers, which are the base of this organization. This is local advocacy, priority setting for their chapter and community. They're doing on the ground water sampling. This is the foundation for which we have built this whole organization. And so in this presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit sometimes about getting involved with your chapter. And that's really for our Izaak Walton League members who may not have jumped into advocacy yet. But this presentation is for everyone. It's just occasionally they'll get an additional shout out from me. So advocacy step number 1, become a member of or renew your membership to the Izaak Walton League of America. That is an advocacy step. We as national staff, we cannot do our jobs in administering these programs without membership and engagement from the community level volunteers and members. So just becoming a member of this organization or organizations like ours provide additional revenue streams for those organizations to continue to advocate on a community, state, or federal level. This is one of those things just for the Ikes. If you are a member of your local chapter, you can join the Conservation Issues Committee. If your chapter doesn't have one, this is a conversation that you can have with your leadership on how to create one. And you can even volunteer to be the Conservation Issues Chair. So we do make sure that our membership has an opportunity to jump in beyond water sampling. Advocacy steps number 2. Follow us or organizations like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Blue Sky, wherever we are, follow us. So you stay up to date with things that are happening in the world, things that are happening in your community, advocacy actions that we are talking about specifically. This really kind of helps you stay in the know. Also, you can complete our action alerts, which we'll talk about in a few more slides. They're often delivered via email or posted on our social media. They're also listed on our website. I'll show you where to find those. And then you can also repost or forward our action alerts on your own social media. So this is a way to engage the individuals that you know personally. Sometimes it's difficult to have these kitchen table discussions about things that we care about. This is a way that you can do it in kind of a non-confrontational way. Hey, here's this thing I'm really concerned about. If you're also concerned about it, here's a way that you can take action. Otherwise, that individual can continue to scroll or not engage with that particular post. But it does bring in an additional audience that we might not, as an organization, have access to generally. Number 3, so learn more about the topics you care about and bring them to the attention of your chapter or your community. This might be achieved by going to a town hall meeting or writing a letter or making a phone call, and we'll talk about all of that stuff in a little bit. But being well-versed in the topics that you care about is super important to make sure that you're able to adequately express not only what the problem is, but what the solutions could be. Secondly, bring any special skill set that you have to the attention of your chapter leadership. This also applies if you are wanting to partner with other organizations. Let's say you have a marketing background that is value added to whatever they're doing in their organization as well. So bring those special skills. I had a boss that used to say, make sure you toot your own horn because nobody's going to toot it for you. Make sure that you're out there telling people what you're good at. Lastly, make sure that you're getting your information from reputable sites, but feel free to check in with our staff to make sure that you're sharing the most up-to-date information. Advocacy steps number 4, submit letters to the editor and send letters to your congressional delegation. We'll get into all of that in a much deeper dive. Contact our organizing staff about attending in-district meetings with legislators. So all of your senators and representatives have offices in your state, in your district. You are welcome to visit those offices with an appointment to talk to those representatives or their staff about the issues that you care about. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So, steps number 5. And I have a tendency to talk fast, so I apologize if I'm missing something or I'm not elaborating on something that you want me to elaborate on. Please put that into the chat and Heather will help me sort that at the end of this presentation. Engage with our water team on actions that you can take to test salt and nitrate levels in your water. We provide kits, and all we do is ask that you go ahead and use them and then upload that data into our hub, which helps us kind of get a good picture of what's going on nationally, state, down to district, community, watershed, right? Also utilize our Salt Watch and Nitrate Watch toolkits on our website. These toolkits have all you need to be an advocate for those specific programs. They are super well done, so if you can utilize them, definitely do. Number 6. Voting is an advocacy action, okay? Make sure that you are investigating the candidates that are running for office in your area and that you are asking the questions and determining your support for those candidates based on your views on conservation or whatever if other issues are important to you and water protections. Secondly, you can attend those city council meetings, town halls, and campaign events. Have questions ready to ask. Super important for those potential or currently elected officials to hear about the issues that are concerning to you or the issues that you care about. You can also coordinate with our staff to have a chapter Hill Day at your state capitol. Again, that's one of those chapter resources that we were talking about before. We can also help you have a chapter Hill Day in Washington, D.C. If you are representing an organization and not a member of the Izaak Walton League or interested in our chapters or whatever, there are potentials for us to still work with you to coordinate Hill Days potentially for your members, our members, the people that are interested. That's just a conversation that we can have later on. So, contacting elected officials. Number one, find your elected representatives by using usa.gov. All you have to do is put in your address and it will populate all of your elected officials for you. Secondly, be aware that different issues go to different representatives. If you are calling about a federal issue or contacting about a federal issue, that's going to be your senators and your representatives. If you are contacting about a state issue, that's going to be your state legislators or your governor's office. If it's a city issue, it's going to be the mayor, city council. If it's a county issue, it's county board of supervisors. But the problem with all of this, like that seems very intuitive and that makes sense, but sometimes we're not 100% sure which issue goes with which office. Sometimes county and city can be confusing, state and federal can be confusing. I would start at the top and ask the question. If you are not sure if this is a state or county issue, call your state representative and say, hey, this is something I'm concerned about. Can you tell me if I'm talking to the right person, or have them direct you to someone else who can? Additionally, when you are calling your elected officials about things that you're concerned about, just make sure that you're only contacting your elected officials. I think we have gotten kind of confused about how contacting electeds works. I can tell you from experience working in a Senate office that every time someone outside of our state called about an issue, that issue got bucked back to their official, their elected official. This is something that you have every right to talk to your officials about, whatever it is. But if you are trying to call all 100 senators, they're all going to get bucked back to your senators. So save your time and just contact the ones that are have been elected to represent you. Lastly, contacting them more does not make them hear you more, which makes sense, but also is like, oh, but I want to talk to them about all the issues that I'm concerned about all the time. And that's okay. But I think it's important to know that if an individual calls a Senate office every day with the exact same issue, they're going to get a boilerplate response. Unless there are new solutions or new details of the issue that are being presented, these Senate staffers and House staffers are getting so much feedback from individuals in their districts right now, which is fantastic, but they simply, even in slow times, do not have the ability to craft messaging for every individual that contacts the office in a unique way. So you will be getting boilerplate letters. Make sure that you are crafting your messaging to provide not only the problem, but the solution. So here's where I'm going to give you a great example of this. We are going to take a look at this letter from the Friends of Sligo Creek. And we're going to talk about what makes this such an outstanding letter. So first of all, we are talking about, this is a water quality issue, okay? So in this first paragraph, I'm writing to deliver a tough message on behalf of Friends of Sligo Creek. This is an emotional appeal, okay? That's something that's very helpful when contacting your elected officials. Sometimes that really helps you get your message across. Friends of Sligo Creek is a nonprofit community organization dedicated to protecting, improving, and appreciating Sligo Creek, the surrounding park, and watershed. So this is why we're contacting. This is who we are, and this is what we care about, okay? That's fantastic. That's how you want to start off a really good letter to your elected officials. Secondly, the next one says, despite your great success in providing safe travel conditions throughout Montgomery County in bad weather and the various SaltWise campaigns, your salt management is failing in its critical mission of environmental stewardship. So we're giving you a compliment, but we're also clearly stating what the problem is. It is bolded and it is underlined. That is something that even someone who is just skimming this letter that's going to catch their eye. That's a really great strategy to use. We go on to different paragraphs with the topic sentence bolded so that, again, if someone is just skimming this letter, they have exactly what they need to figure out either who it goes to or how they might respond when they have the ability to continue to do all the reading and the research. They're also providing additional information about, here's where we got this information. Here's a link to a report. Here's where we're getting our testing materials, things like that. So that's really great. So we go through and we talk about all of the issue that we want a reaction to or response to, and then we say, what can be done about this salt challenge? Is the degradation of our freshwater streams the inevitable price to pay for salt for safety? And then they go on to talk about solutions, not only short-term solutions, but long-term solutions. That is really helpful to elected officials because if they can enact a short-term solution quickly, that makes them look good and can help to solve at least some of the problem. Now, they may or may not take up all the long-term solutions. They might not take up any of the short-term solutions, but you have done your due diligence providing them with not only what the problem is, you've provided them with feedback on how to fix it. Additionally, this is super important. They have provided a contact person and the contact information for that person. I have seen so many letters come through that was signed Friends of Raccoon River, and there was no contact information. There was no contact person. So this is great that they identified a particular person and provided their contact information. Also with this, they have provided pictures and locations and dates. So this is exactly what they're talking about. There's an oversalting issue at Dennis Health Center, and these pictures were taken January 5th, 2025, 3 pictures taken January 10th, 2025. That helps to provide a visual representation of what they're talking about. Lastly, with this one, there's a chart. I love a chart. This is what the chloride level is, where it was tested, what date it was tested. This is a really good visualization of what this elected official could take back to a committee meeting, a city council meeting, whatever it is, and be like, okay, here's exactly what they're talking about. So these visual representations work really well. You don't have to do all of this. I'm just giving you this particular example as a fantastic way to get the point across using all the bullet points that I would recommend to use. I think Heather put a link to that in the chat. So again, use of bolding to express main points, clear, concise language, graphics and photos, solutions. They've provided short-term and long-term solutions. That's fantastic. And then contact information for the point of contact. Next, phone calls. Just because this is a time of high traffic in congressional offices, I will just remind everyone to be passionately polite. Also, if you get someone on the phone, ask them how they prefer you to contact their office. Every office has a different process with how they do intake and then how they present that information to the member. So some office may say, please, just phone calls are great. Some offices might say, you know what, a physical letter is fantastic. Some offices might prefer email, whatever it is. Asking that question can kind of help ingratiate you too. You're letting them know you're trying to make their job a little easier. Provide your contact information and request a response. That's something you should always be doing when you are contacting your elected officials. Request a response, whether you do it via phone, email, writing, whatever, request a response. Have a list of bullet points prepared ahead of time. Their time is limited. Their phones are ringing off the hook. They would like to process your phone call as quickly as possible. So if you want to make that advocacy impactful, make sure that you're able to get your thoughts across quickly. Always leave a message with contact information if you get the machine, which a lot of people are right now. Just make sure that they know how to get that response to you after you've requested it. And then again, make sure you know what you're asking for. I think there are times where people can feel very emotional when they're calling their elected officials. Make sure that you know what it is that you're asking for when it comes to a solution, and also make sure that you're identifying the problem in a way that makes sense to them. Next, office visits. You can call and request a visit with your senator or representative. You will almost always be meeting with staff. They are often the content experts that you want to talk to anyway. So do not be disappointed if you are calling to have a meeting with a representative in your area and you sit down with one of their staffers. That's the person you're going to want to talk to anyway. Make sure you bring your prepared remarks with you. Make sure you stay on topic. Also bring any information, graphs, data, or materials with you. Also be aware of restricted items in federal buildings like mace and pocket knives if that's something that you carry with you. They will not allow you into a federal building, and not all of the offices are in federal buildings, but just as a heads up, may prevent you from having to take a trek back to your car. Outline the problem and the solution, and again, make sure you know what you're asking for. What is the solution? So I love a broken link. All right. You're going to keep your messages or your messaging short and concise on fact sheets, one pagers, and infographics. We have fantastic examples of them on our website. And if I was smart, I would have said, oh no, it's a broken link. You have to go to our website to see all these fantastic fact sheets. But really, it's just the photo didn't come through. But creating visuals that move the reader from point to point is really important. Pick a color theme and stick with it. And maybe that's just a little bit of my personal OCD. I really like a nice looking fact sheet and one pager. Again, identify the problem, offer the solution, and don't forget a logo if you have one, and your contact information. So now we're going to talk about some of the fun stuff when it comes to advocacy. There are creative, memorable advocacy actions that you can take. This was a Paint the Plow event. We've partnered with counties in Maryland to have high school kids come and design a Paint the Plow design, and they go ahead and they paint them. And that provides really great visual representations of what you're talking about. This is high visibility. Most people are going to see these. Now, the condition of them at the end of the snow season might not be amazing, but these are things that can go on social media as a way to engage with the community and also get yourself and your organization out there to be seen in the community. Some other creative and memorable advocacy actions that you can take. Advocacy can be speaking, it can be writing, it can be reading, it can also be art, it can also be community-focused events. So our All Water Leads to the Sea is community art. Protect Rancoa's Creek. That is a way to state your particular issue, whether you're out in a canoe or you're standing at a protest. Having those visual representations can be really helpful. Greenpeace had a bake sale to protect the oceans. I dig it. That's totally fine. However, you can get yourself out there and make an impact in your community. 100% recommend that you do that. The Water is Life was a art competition for kids. That's a great way to get young advocates involved. And also, if you can provide, a gift card or, whatever kind of prize that you can give for kids participating in your art challenge, that'll get more participation from them. Beach cleanups, invasive species removal, any way that you can get people to the location you're trying to advocate for, that really helps people connect the dots a little bit. So get them out there, get them in your watershed, have them doing something that follows the mission of your organization and what you're trying to do. And then down in the corner is our friend Stephen Marking. He is a storyteller and has done a ton of research on the founder for our organization, whose name is Will Dilg. And Stephen created a whole program about Will. So he gives a talk, he has a movie, he sings a song. People have responded really well to this content. It's just another creative way to engage in advocacy, right? Because this is Stephen raising awareness for the issues along the Mississippi specifically. So however you can utilize the artists and the creators in your community and partner with them in a way that is impactful and memorable. Again, with those partnerships, are there other organizations in your area doing similar work? This could be your local Ducks Unlimited, Trout Unlimited, World Wildlife Federation, Greenpeace, Nature Conservancy. This could be your watershed districts. This can be any organization in your area that's doing similar work. Find ways to partner and work together. It's easier to share the burden than to do it alone. And also, you're all going to bring different skills to the table so that you can engage in the same kind of advocacy together. Stepping back for 1 second to letters to elected officials, if you have a bunch of organizations that are all together on a single issue, providing a letter with everyone signing on, that is super impactful too. So thinking about those partnerships and how to go about the clear, concise, solution based communication with your elected representatives is going to be more impactful. So, the press. If you are having an event, first of all, you need to figure out if you want partners in this event, if you want to do it alone. Determine what kind of event you'd like to have. Then develop a list of reporters, bloggers, media personalities in your area. The media landscape is changing all of the time. So this could be anything from a local disc jockey to the local news, to a small town paper, to a larger paper, to a blogger, to an influencer, podcaster, whatever that looks like in your community. Develop a list of the people that you would like to bring in to this event. Then you're going to want to post on social media and invite all your guests, but don't invite the press before you're ready. You don't want this event to collapse or for something to happen where it doesn't go the way that you anticipated that it can go. And sometimes we can't determine that before. Sometimes we kind of get the feeling in our gut. We're like, oh, this is not going to be exactly what I want it to be. So make sure that you've got all your T's dotted or your T's crossed and I's dotted before you bring in the press to your particular event. Write a press release. There are templates on the internet. Writing a press release is not nearly as complicated as a lot of people seem to think it is. Again, clear, concise. What are the priorities? What's the goal? Who's the contact person? Again, I can't say you need a contact person enough because it's so, so important. Hey, there it is. Provide a point of consistent contact. If that's you, if that's someone from another organization, whoever it is, make sure that that press person has it. Follow up prior to the event via phone or email. Make sure they got the press release. Make sure they know where they're going. If they can't attend, can you do an interview before? Press them a little bit to see if you can get them to your event. Make sure once they get there that the reporter has everything that they need. I always bring them a bottle of water just to ensure that, you know, they don't have to leave during something important to go get a drink. Ask if they have a deadline and when it is. If it's 4 o'clock tomorrow, great. Then you know that you have to have all of the information that you have about this event or additional information, additional data to them by 4 o'clock. Have clear, concise talking points that you sum up goals as a group, ensure that you're on message. Think of good photo ops too, and either designate someone in your group to get the shot or set up a shot list for a photographer if your media representative brings a photographer with them. So this could be, you know, the two heads of the organization standing against a backdrop. This could be, you know, a child picking a wildflower, whatever it is, make sure that those shots are set anytime that you can. Also, be on air ready. You may end up having to do a television interview that you didn't anticipate having to do. Make sure that you feel ready for it when you have all of your clear, concise talking points and you feel comfortable being on camera. Follow up prior to their deadline and make sure any additional information that they need can be provided, and then send a thank you note or an email post story run. The press 3. So letters to the editor are a fantastic way to get your thoughts in print. Op-eds are another avenue to get our ideas out to print media readers. IWLA has our Save Our Streams letters to the editor and op-ed guides. It's a step-by-step how-to guide in getting your letter published. We'll take a look at that real quick. This is a fantastic resource if you have never written an op-ed, if you don't feel super confident writing one, or if you just want to go back and be like, am I missing anything? So we break it down. What is an LTE versus an op-ed? We talk about choosing your publications. There may be small town newspapers that you're going to focus on if there is a community issue, again, versus, the Chicago Tribune or, a dispatch paper that's a little bit larger. Right for your audience, you may have to go into a little bit more detail about the particular issue. If it is something that hasn't been in the news a lot, or it's, something that maybe people aren't super aware of, make sure that you're providing additional details. So writing tips, and then all this other great information is provided in here. There's a link, should be a link in the chat to this so that you can go and take a look at it. There's also some examples. So with these examples, you are more than welcome to use this as a base for you to write a similar letter. So figuring out what kind of talking points you want to address, and then just kind of plugging them in with some additional verbiage that we've provided or that we've spotlighted. There's several of them in here. So take a look at those. And then the other thing that you can do right now, if you are like, wow, I'd love to write an LTE or an op-ed, but I am up to my eyeballs in work and other things that have to be done. Great. So this is something that's super easy. This is one of those advocacy actions that we were talking about before. You can ask Congress to protect wetlands in the Farm Bill. You could take action on nitrate pollution and even go down to state issues and put your address in on that one to figure out what's going on with excessive road salt in your area. So those are super easy ones to it'll take you 5 minutes to do those. So to kind of conclude a little bit, again, I'm Jess. I'm the Grassroots Advocacy Manager. I am based in the Quad Cities, which is a community on the Mississippi River spanning Iowa and Illinois. I'm your first contact for advocacy actions in your community. I'm a good person to start with if, again, you're not sure what a particular issue where it should go, or you're not finding your representatives, or you're writing an LTE and you're just not 100% sure how to phrase something correctly. Or if you are in the upper Midwest and you want to go visit your congressional member and you want someone to go with you, I may be in your area. I may be able to work that out. Next step is our conservation director. That's Jared. He is based in Gaithersburg, Maryland at the IWLA headquarters. He's your contact for legislative guidance and for DC advocacy. Again, if you're going to DC and you want to meet with your legislators, not guaranteeing that Jared will be able to go, but if he's on the Hill anyway and you want to attend a meeting with him or have him go with you, that's a possibility. But I'm not, just so we're clear, I'm not signing Jared up for anything, just so I don't get an email later. Here's our address. Here's my contact information one more time, and Jared's contact information. Here's the phone number to headquarters and our website. And thank you for being here. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Heather, you've collected them. That would be fantastic.
Yes, thank you, Jess. And thank you to everyone who has dropped questions in the Q&A. I know some people might have dropped some in the chat too, and I'm doing my best to keep an eye on those, but for the best chance of your question reaching Jess, make sure to drop it in the Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started, and folks can keep dropping questions there as we talk. But I'll just go from the top. We have a question that says, I've been advocating and working in policy for a little over a year now, and I still find the hardest part is actually getting an elected official to respond to my emails. Any tips? I remain bipartisan and try to be transparent, yet concerned.
Yeah, so again, I think contacting their local office or district office is kind of first step, and asking again, what's the best way to get a response? What is the best way to send a communication through your office? Once you start to kind of build a little bit of a rapport with the people answering the phone, you'll be surprised at the amount of guidance they can provide to you to get the response to your question. Um, you can also, I mean, they can also provide contact information for people in the office that are content experts, maybe someone that's legislative aid. Um, Not all offices will do that, but you could also ask, is there someone in DC that is a content expert in this area? Would you be able to provide their contact information to me? Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't.
Sounds good. Our next questions, we have two that kind of are in reference to the example of the letter shared from Friends of Sligo Creek.
Mhm.
One question asker says, your Sligo Creek letter seems very long. Is it better to keep letters short?
It depends, right? So I think with this Sligo Creek letter, um, this is going to community officials that are city and county based. I think if you know exactly who you are talking to, if it is a water commissioner, if it's the soil guru, whoever it is in the area, I think you can get into the weeds a little bit and a little bit more detailed with these communications. If you're sending a letter to the mayor's office, which might not have expertise in this particular area, you may want to pare it down and just do the bullet points and then ask for it to be forwarded to the person that is an expert in this area.
Something cool about that letter too that you may have mentioned was that they also have it shared on their website, like publicly viewable, which I think that in and of itself also kind of works to their advantage as like a an outreach component. Anyone and everyone can find that letter and use it for whatever, advocacy they might be doing. So having that extra like bulk to it is good in that respect. Another question though, are official letters better than just an email?
It depends. I mean, there's no hard and fast rule that says it's always better to write a letter or it's always better to write an email. Um, there's no there's no harm in doing both. But again, if you start to kind of get to know the people that are answering the phone and the people that are working in the offices, they can give you kind of a little bit more guidance of, yeah, we're going to get to an email quicker than we're going to get to a physical letter, or we can hand the physical letter to the elected official and they can read it on their own time, which may be more impactful to them than an email because they get 400 emails every day and they don't get letters as much. So it just kind of depends. And unfortunately, there's not a hard and fast rule on that.
And as far as kind of where to start with reaching out, do you think it's best for reaching out to local legislative representatives, or should we be starting with DC?
So I would say, I think a representative's office, a federal representative's office in your area, would probably be my first stop if I'm really not sure where something goes. Simply because they get all sorts of communications all the time, and they're really good at being able to sort to the different individuals in the different communities where particular concerns might go. For example, when I worked for the Senate, we routinely got letters about the grass being too long on the boulevard that individuals lived on, and that was clearly not within our purview. But we had already developed a relationship with someone at the city, and so it was easy for us to transfer that concern from the constituent to the city pretty seamlessly.
How can someone join the Izaak Walton League, Jess?
You go to our website, and there is basically kind of a form that you fill out, and it's pretty easy. Heather, do you have any other? I mean, it's on the website.
Yeah, iwla.org. And I will say that question I think comes from Paul, who is in Africa. Hi, Paul. I'll drop a link in the chat. This is to the Waterkeeper Alliance. For anyone who is in a location where they're not sure like what water groups exist near you, this is a great place to start. Even internationally, this is a great network to kind of tap into. But yes, find our website, iwla.org. You can find a link to join nationally. or of course, find a chapter near you. So those were all the questions in the Q&A. I know there's a couple other things being shared in the chat, some great examples of folks who are doing advocacy, which we absolutely love to see. So thank you for sharing your insight. I think those are all the questions though. So, oh wait, I just saw one more come in. Excellent. Keep them coming, guys. So if a chapter advocate wants to partner with an organization that may not totally agree with the league, is that a problem with the league? That's a great question.
Yeah, so in that particular circumstance, I would say you need to consult your division. That's where I would start with that one. I don't know that the league has an official policy on that, but I think, starting with your division to make sure that you're keeping in line with the priorities, makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Another question that came in, this person says, my understanding is that if you call every day, even on the same topic, staff tallies those calls. So yes, you might get a form letter or an email in response, but it's good to keep the numbers of calls high. Is that true in your experience, Jess?
Yeah, it is. But if you're looking for a response to something, if you're looking for an action to be taken, I would say making sure that your communication is concise and kind of follows all the guidelines that we talked about before. But if you're just looking to make sure that your elected official knows that people are upset or concerned about one particular issue, you can continue to call every day. There's no rule that says that you can't. It's just that if you're looking for a solution or looking for a particular action, I would say to make sure that your messaging is crafted a little bit more tightly.
Awesome. Well, as folks continue to think on this topic, if you have questions, I'm sure Jess would be happy to field them. Do you want to go back to that slide with the contact info on it?
Yeah.
And of course, this webinar it was recorded, so we will be sharing the recording soon. And you can find that on our website and on our YouTube channel. But I just wanted to say thanks again to Jess for sharing your wisdom with us and being such a great resource to our members and our volunteers. And thanks also to everyone for attending and having great questions and conversation. Everyone have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.